the cable has 4 ends, and they all have to go a specific way, and it sucks, and I don't know what else to say. This is an overview of replacing the LCD cable on a Lenovo IdeaPad Flex 4-1470. Other models may be similar or not, I don't know. This cable is very annoying because it actually goes through the hinge. This is the old cable, this is the new cable. But it has to go through the hinge. There is, when you pull the hinge out, you will see, let me get you some more light here. When you pull the hinge out, you will see that the cable goes through the hinge. There's a little rubber block that clips into this hinge. So this hinge has to come out. It's the left side if you're looking directly at the unit opened. And you have to run the cable through the hinge, and it has to go through at a certain point, or all of these lengths won't go where they belong here in the general screen area. Now, here's the other frustrating part of this. Let's get you closer. The other annoying bit here is that this is so flat that you have to be very specific in how you do this. So this hinge goes here, and these two cables go here and here. This cable, however, doesn't go here. It has to wrap. It goes through the whole hinge area, but then it has to wrap here, and it goes all the way around up to the webcam board, which I currently have removed, but it wraps up here to the top, and there's a very specific set of clips you have to get it in. Then, of course, you have the actual screen cable itself. But routing this will be a nightmare. It will probably be a good idea for you to take a picture before you actually try to do it, which is exactly what I did not do. So, you know, because I decided not to do it, I don't have a guide now. But you have no choice but to take this one hinge out. You do not have to take the other one out. So don't even bother taking the right hinge out. You have to take the motherboard out to get it out anyway. So at least they made this somewhat serviceable. But you will probably have to repeat this whole routing mess every single time you want to get this done. I don't know. I'm not looking forward to it. But the cable has 4 ends, and they all have to go a specific way, and it sucks, and I don't know what else to say. As far as disassembly goes, let me show you real quick how to get this disassembled. So, the screen here is a touch screen with the touch part basically glued to the front of the screen. It goes like this in the lid. You can use whatever pry tool. I use this, one of these weird clay modeling kit things, but get it up in the seam just like you'd pry anything else. There are, at the bottom here, there are a couple of these pieces of plastic trim, and there's 2 screws here. But that's all that holds it, other than these rubbery clips around the edges. And that's really confidence-inspiring, isn't it? So, getting it apart isn't a big deal. The base is just the usual, you know, the usual 9, 10 or so screws, and then you pry around the edges. So, easy, frankly, compared to some of these things. But the crap part is getting the wire in place, and that's what I have to do, and I'm not going to make you watch me do it, but the bottom line is get a picture of these routings and do them very carefully. Get the lengths exact. You may actually prefer, for this top one, which is the most painful to get routed, you may prefer to attach it to the webcam board before you do anything else. Attach it, put it in, and then just start routing it from that attachment. So that's what I'm going to do right now, assuming my feeble hands can accomplish the goal. And, you know, once you have the connectors in and all that, you can pull the adhesive and finish the job. But anyway, that's what I would suggest. I'm going to go ahead and turn this off and actually do it. I feel bad for you if you're having to do this, but it's actually one of the easier things to do because the disassembly is honestly pretty straightforward. Have a good one. A little quick follow-up. The Lenovo IdeaPad Flex 4-1470. After replacing the cable, the G sensor in the screen area, the cable was too short for the G sensor, so I couldn't hook it back up. And now the computer is, you know, sideways, which is not terribly useful to the customer. So what we're going to do is we're going to go in here and kill the G sensor, which is a little bit beyond the scope of this video, but the gist of it is you need to go into Device Manager, you know, here, go into Device Manager, and you need to nuke the orientation sensor. You need to disable it so that it cannot be redetected and doesn't run again. Because the sensor that's in here is not what the computer sees. That's just the actual sensor part that goes to something in here that's on the motherboard that you can't remove to disable. So yeah. We will disable the orientation sensor and fix the orientation. And that's how you deal with this silly problem. So here's one more additional addendum, if you will. First of all, the keyboard and mouse aren't working. In fact, you can see caps lock doesn't trigger, but over here on the external I've hooked up, caps lock does trigger. So I have to fix that, so I have to do everything by keyboard. So Windows X gets us a start menu, and you can go into Device Manager, but here's what you really need to do. Go to Start and type Orientation and change the orientation of the display. Then you can use Tab to move through the on-screen elements, and what you need to do is turn on Rotation Lock. There. Turn on Rotation Lock, and then switch the orientation to Landscape, which if you hit Alt down, it lets you go through the list without triggering a change every time. You need Landscape, not Portrait or any of the flipped, because if you pick flipped, then you get this nonsense, which is not very helpful. So that's how you can lock it. So even if the G sensor driver does re-enable, or if you just don't feel like disabling it, you'll be able to use your computer again. Another follow-up. So the keyboard wouldn't work. The mouse, the touchpad worked, but the keyboard wouldn't work, so I had to use this. And here's the secret. Without the G sensor, this thing thinks it's in tablet orientation all the time. Lenovo has software to disable the keyboard so that you can't accidentally press keys or use the touchpad when you're in tablet orientations. So in addition to rotation lock, you have to go here into the services on the computer, which you can do with, well, external keyboard would be needed, but Windows R and then services.msc. Okay, so go into services here, find the YMC service, which is yoga mode control, and you need to disable and stop that service, and it will stop locking your keyboard down to where you can't use it. That's about it. So this thing now will not auto-rotate, and it will not lock the keyboard down to where the keyboard doesn't work, even though it should.